So, if you're working in construction management, you already know the reality of the job. Claims are just inevitable. A sudden delay pops up, a design gets tweaked midstream, or maybe you take a massive hit to productivity on site. And suddenly, each one of these issues is draining your project's time and budget. But here's the thing, not all claims are created equal. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're going to decode the exact taxonomy of construction claims so you can really safeguard your contractual rights.
Think of this flowchart right here as our foundational blueprint. It basically takes the incredibly chaotic world of construction claims and organizes it into a neat, easy-to-read taxonomy. We're looking at four main branches today: claims involving other contract parties, claims against the owner, scope-related issues sitting right there in the middle, and finally, claims against the contractor.
Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We'll be moving logically through this taxonomy. First up, other parties. Then we'll hit the owner, scope claims, and the contractor. And then we'll wrap the whole thing up with a really powerful, practical management formula. Let's dive in.
All right, Section 1, claims against other contract parties. So these types of claims typically bubble up between the various players on a site, right? We're talking subcontractors, consultants, and suppliers. We've got duty claims when there's just a basic failure to perform a task. Then there are warranty claims for, well, falling short on guarantees. Now, say a supplier's late delivery totally messes up your schedule, boom, that's a delay claim. But here's a really crucial distinction for you. If someone's interference tanks your productivity but doesn't actually delay the final completion date, that triggers what we call a disruption claim. And let me tell you, those are notoriously some of the hardest claims to actually quantify.
We also need to talk about termination claims. The key thing to look at here is the trigger. Termination for convenience essentially means the contract is ended without one specific party necessarily being at fault. Maybe the project funding just dried up. But contrast that with termination for cause. That's when a specific, undeniable breach literally forces the cancellation of the contract.
Moving on to Section 2, claims against the owner.
Okay, when an owner's actions directly bottleneck the contractor, you better believe claims are going to follow. Just think about it, a locked gate causing late site access, or maybe delayed drawing approvals, or even the late release of absolutely critical info. To win these types of claims, the contractor has to explicitly prove exactly how these specific owner delays directly impacted their time or their cost.
Then there is acceleration. Now, there is a massive difference between a contractor voluntarily speeding up their work to recover their own lost time, which is just planned acceleration, and an actual acceleration claim. That claim only happens when a contractor is literally compelled by a strict owner requirement or maybe a threatened deadline to just burn through extra resources and overtime.
And we definitely have to talk about the absolute lifeblood of any project: cash flow. Payment claims are everywhere. Whether it's unpaid work, unfair retention practices, or that incredibly frustrating scenario where amounts have actually been certified but the employer still hasn't cut the check, these claims are entirely about protecting your margins. All right, dropping right into the middle of our blueprint with Section 3, scope-related claims.
Scope variations are arguably the most common claims in the entire industry. It usually plays out a little something like this. You meticulously price out the original design, right? Then, 6 months down the line, the employer issues an instruction for some additional structural work that definitely wasn't in the contract. That immediate need for extra resources, it instantly generates a scope claim.
This category also includes differing site conditions. It's the classic nightmare scenario where you start digging and suddenly hit solid rock that literally nobody anticipated. Scope claims also cover things like defective drawings, missing info, project suspensions, and even implied warranties. Basically, if it alters what you originally promised to build, it's a scope issue.
Next up, Section 4, claims against the contractor.
So here is where the tables turn. Now the owner is raising the claim because of contractor liabilities. More often than not, this boils down to defective work. We're talking about poor workmanship, failing to follow the specs, using cheap materials, or, just leaving the job half-finished. Nobody likes a leaky pipe, and for sure, it's going to cost you.
But there is a really unique outlier here that we need to touch on: tort claims. While most claims are strictly bound by the four corners of your contract, tort claims arise from negligence. This basically means a contractor's liability can sometimes extend completely beyond the contract itself, totally depending on local laws. It's a real game changer.
Finally, we've reached Section 5, practical claims management. Okay, so theory really only gets you so far. To actually win a claim out there in the real world, you absolutely must master these 3 pillars. First, the contract. You have to know your provisions for entitlement inside and out. Second, notice. If you miss your submission window, you might literally forfeit your rights entirely. And third, contemporaneous records. Your daily reports, site photos, and meeting minutes, those are absolutely your best defense.
Let's just watch how the dominoes fall on a live site for a second. An owner issues a revised drawing. That change impacts the scope. The new sequence causes a delay. So the contractor documents the extra resources, updates the program, and calculates the exact cost. Do you see that unbroken chain of cause and effect? That right there is exactly how an undeniable claim is built.
There is this sort of unwritten golden rule in the construction industry. Basically, if an event isn't properly documented, notified, analyzed, and fully supported by evidence, well, it might as well have not happened. A claim isn't just you pleading for some extra cash. It is a highly formal, evidence-backed assertion of your legal entitlement.
So here is your ultimate formula. Event plus entitlement plus notice plus evidence connected by cause and effect, and finally backed by a solid time and cost analysis. Every single one of these elements mathematically stacks together. If you remove just one of those puzzle pieces, the whole claim just falls apart.
Knowing that your entitlement completely depends on the quality of your daily records, I'm going to leave you with this final thought. How will you structure your next project's paperwork to ensure every potential claim is mathematically undeniable? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep your records tight, protect your time, and definitely protect your budget.